Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, 2/22/22. So a lot of twos today. Welcome to all of you watching live, those of you watching the recording. I'm sorry you missed out on all the twos in our session today. My name is Jeff Bruner with WiLS. I am excited to be joined by Victor Karker and Sandy Nance coming to us from Scrible. They are going to talk to us today about piloting Scrible at your school. We'll learn all about that, and we'll be pleased to take your questions as well. So I like to keep my introduction short. I am going to stop sharing my screen so that one of my co-hosts can go ahead and take the reins whenever they're ready. Scrible folks, over to you.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Super excited to do this with you today. I am really happy to be here myself, but I'm also happy to introduce a new team member of ours named Sandy, who you can see here on the call as well. And she's actually going to be pretty involved if you are interested and want to end up piloting with us this semester or in the future. So definitely want to say hi to Sandy and give her a shout out. And what I'm going to do is basically share my screen and dive right in, since I know that we don't have a very long time. I think this is a short webinar. What I would really love is, since we've done a couple of other webinars of different sorts with the WiLS community before, I would actually love it if folks maybe would just put into the chat if you've actually been on one of those webinars, or if this is completely new to you, or if you've checked us out, or if this is completely new to you. Because the first part of what I'm going to be talking about is just giving sort of a general background of what Scrible is and how it works, because otherwise I think the whole conversation around piloting doesn't really make sense if you don't know what it is that you might be piloting. And so if you could just let us know in the chat if you're new, or if you have a pretty good sense of what Scrible is, that'd be helpful in terms of letting me know how much time I should be spending on the background. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of folks that are saying they're completely new, and that's great. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will dive right in. Give me just one sec. Okay. All right. Maybe I'll ask Sandy to give me a thumbs up if she sees that you all can see my screen now. You should see a slide that says piloting Scrible at your school, and you should see the National Science Foundation logo at the top. You see that, Sandy? Yeah. Okay. Great. So I'll just kind of dive right in here, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Victor. I'm one of the co-founders of Scrible, and we are newly partnered with WiLS, actually, and that's frankly one of the reasons we're doing this webinar, is to kind of let you know what we offer and the partnership that we have with WiLS, and kind of opportunities to benefit from that partnership for your school. So really high level background to start off with. I started this company because I needed something like this when I was a student in school, and to an extent also a knowledge worker in the work environment. We have been backed early on by the National Science Foundation, and then more recently we've been partnered and integrated with Google and Microsoft. And I like to try to keep it a little bit interactive, even though I'm going to be obviously doing a lot of presenting here. And so one of the questions I like to ask up front is, if you don't mind putting in the chat, let us know if you are primarily a Google district or a Microsoft district. It is sometimes possible that you use both extensively, but it's usually rare unless you're a very, very large district. But we'd like to know that, and I think you'll kind of see why that might be interesting as we get further into this conversation. And I'll just sort of lay out for those of you, again, that are new, that Scrible is really the most advanced research and writing platform anybody's ever built. And I know that's a big statement, but I think we feel comfortable making that statement given how comprehensive the platform is. And you see also there that there is something we toss in about close reading, and why that is will probably become more clear to you later in the presentation. But the gist of it, just to not leave you hanging too long, is that a lot of the annotation tools that we've built are really useful for close reading and text analysis. So you have folks out there that might be using Scrible for research and writing, which is what we're known for, but increasingly a lot of folks are also using the tools for literacy. So here's the problem that we've been addressing, which I think a lot of you know, unfortunately, firsthand, which is that research and writing is tough, and that about half the students coming out of secondary in our country struggle with research and writing skills. It's a pretty pervasive problem. It starts quite early. Some would say as early as late elementary. We tend to focus on it really in secondary, so grades 6 through 12, although we do have folks using Scribble in late elementary as well. And the problem continues on into colleges and universities, where instructors complain that students coming to them are not well prepared in these areas. And then, unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily get addressed there as well. So it continues on into the work environment. And I've got a presentation that talks about that, but that's not covered here. What we've done at Scrible is really try to understand why this work has always been so difficult and so tricky for students, librarians, and teachers. And one of the things I think from the work that you do with students is that, frankly, historically, and maybe just innately, it is a very logistically complex process. So if you think about something like, a research paper, historically it involves a lot of different tasks, like what you see here on the left-hand side of the slide. And what educators and students have had to do historically is cobble together a lot of different tools to do different parts of the workflow. So they might have had a standalone citation tool, a PDF organizer or reference manager, a web clipper to be able to grab internet research, and students are pulling information from the open web as well as databases. And so it's basically a hot mess of different sort of apps and workflows and different things you have to keep organized. And from a student's perspective, it becomes easy to have your work scattered in all these different places, and it's not necessarily easy to stay organized. And from your perspective, as a librarian or as a teacher that you might be working with, it's hard to teach and track students through this process because all the student work and data is trapped in all these different data silos and these different ways of working. And so at Scrible, what we've done is really sort of bring all those different capabilities and those tools under one roof, so that you kind of get a streamlined workflow, from the very beginning, all the way through to, basically when you're done with your assignment. And it is, again, the most comprehensive, fully integrated kind of platform that ties a lot of those different tools together in one place. And what I have is a very quick 2-minute video that does a pretty good job pretty quickly of giving you a sense of how the platform works. So what I'm going to do now is just switch to Chrome and let you hear that video over my computer speakers, because that has historically worked pretty well. So let me go ahead and do that. And we've got the video teed up right here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit play and just sit here quietly and listen for 2 minutes while it's playing.
Until now, students have had to use multiple separate tools for their research and writing work, making it time-consuming, frustrating, and hard to stay organized throughout the process. Scrible unites this disjointed workflow by bringing everything together under one roof. It's a super app for students, educators, and librarians to curate, annotate, cite, and write. With Scrible, curating information is easy. Scrible saves web pages, PDFs, and database articles instantly to a cloud-based library with just a click of the Scrible Chrome extension. You can also add files like PDFs from your desktop and Google Drive. You can richly annotate articles directly in the browser and even collaboratively annotate with others in real time. Citations are generated automagically. Scrible pulls citation information from articles and books and instantly displays the properly formatted citation. The Scrible library stores a wide variety of file and information formats. Stay organized by using full text search and tags to find articles. Scrible also empowers the writing process. Quickly generate an outline by dragging and dropping quotes and comments from your Scrible library. In Google Docs, the Scrible add-on allows you to access your library so you can easily insert your outline and bring your evidence, comments, and citations into the paper while automatically updating your bibliography. Scrible is deeply integrated with Google for Education, including roster sync and assignment integration with Google Classroom. Scrible also offers rich analytics for tracking student progress in real time. Quickly see which students are struggling and where they're stuck. Scrible centralizes student work, making it accessible in one place and enabling educators to easily provide timely feedback throughout the entire process. For students, Scrible frees up valuable time wasted on manual and mundane tasks for higher level learning, like reading critically for quality evidence and crafting strong arguments. For educators, Scrible enables personalized instruction for close reading, research, and writing. Sign up for a free account today and see what Scrible can do for you.
You ever wondered what?
Hilarious. Okay, that's always the risk of YouTube. Thank you. Hopefully you're all able to hear that okay. And hopefully you're a Chris Pratt fan so that you were able to enjoy that beach photo of him on YouTube. Sorry about that. But I wanted to let you know that the platform actually does a lot of things. It does more than what's in the video, but there's only so much you can squeeze into a video. That hopefully gives you a pretty good idea of roughly how things work. So what I want to do now is just take a couple minutes to quickly kind of show you some other things that I think are worth considering. I see, I was just checking on while the video was playing your responses to whether you're using Google versus Microsoft. And it looks like most of you are in fact using Google, which is great. I do like to point out to folks that even if your district or school is using Google, it's nice to know that we essentially do all the same stuff for the Microsoft user that we do for you all, because at some point, if your students leave, and go to college or to another district or school, or they just want to use this at home, maybe with Microsoft products, it's good to know that we're able to do that and support them there as well. And I won't read through this entire slide. The gist of it is that we are sort of deeply integrated with both ecosystems. And so if you're already using Google, as many of you are on this call right now, there's lots of touch points that makes it easier to integrate Scribble into the workflow that teachers and students are already used to. We are also pretty integrated and partnered with a number of other platforms. And again, I would just be interested if you don't mind putting in the chat if you actually use any of these things. But we are partnered with all of these companies except for Schoology, and you can see that we're integrated pretty deeply with all of them as well. But yeah, if you don't mind putting that into the chat, that's a little kind of helpful context for us to know as well. And if you're not, it's okay. These things are not required, but they're nice sort of additional benefits if you are in fact using them. So I wanted to now take a minute to sort of talk a little bit about the broader use beyond research and writing, which I spoke about briefly at the very beginning. Given the work that you do, I'm sure a lot of this may be sort of self-evident, so I won't sort of belabor any of it, but I wanted to point out that now that you've seen at a high level in that video how the annotation stuff works, you might appreciate that folks are actually using Scribble for close reading and text analysis and not just for research and writing. And so there's some very specific reasons for that, right? The first is that we have these really rich annotation tools that work across web content and PDF. And while annotation is not a new concept, the ability to do it across web and PDF is a little novel. There are a lot of PDF annotation tools out there, but there have been very few, if any, frankly, really good web annotation tools. Many people have tried along the way, and that's actually where we started. But we have a novel algorithm under the hood that lets us do it in a much more robust way than anybody's ever really done web annotation in kind of like the 20-year history of that product space. So we're able to provide sort of a single app that lets you do both well, as opposed to having to use a PDF annotation tool and then something separate that may not be as robust or work well, as has been the case historically with web tools. The second reason is that our whole annotation platform is built to work very similar to the collaborative Google Docs user experience. So, people love Google Docs because you can have multiple people editing the same document at the same time. In our world, we've built our annotation platform to work in a similar way so that you can have real-time concurrent collaborative annotation. What that means is you can do something like a small group text analysis where you've got 3 or 4 students in the same article going through and analyzing an article, let's say, commenting, replying to one another, highlighting and pointing out facts and figures, and everybody sees each other's changes in real time. We've built what you call presence awareness into the application. It's kind of like Google Docs, so that when you're in an article, you're able to see who else is in the article at the same time as you, right? So it enables a kind of real-time collaboration for text analysis that we've been told historically, frankly, could get clunky. But the way that we've built it really enables a more modern user experience that people are used to now in other ways, in other places. The third thing is that unlike traditional or even newer literacy apps, we are not a content provider. So we don't have a horse in that race. We're not saying, hey, use Scribble because our content is better. We have a set of tools that let you work well with whatever content you have access to. So that could be a PDF on your desktop that you upload. That could be, a news article that you grab with the Chrome extension that we provide. It could even actually be an article from one of those other, apps that maybe you use in the browser. So like Newsella, for example, we've gotten emails from people saying that they like their content, but they like what you can do with it within Scribble better. So they'll bring articles from some of these other providers into Scribble and then be able to do a lot of other things with it. And then the fourth and interesting thing here is that we actually kind of enable the ability to quickly curate and distribute texts. So, in the video you saw that everyone gets a Scribble library. And in the kind of the paid version of the product, we do actually have the ability for you to create essentially shared libraries. And one of those shared libraries could be a class library that you or a teacher create. And it can be a great mechanism to quickly curate a bunch of articles. For example, it could be some news that just broke about what's going on right now in world geopolitics, because there's a lot of content being published right now. You could grab that real quick, put it into a class library, let's say in a social studies class, and everybody in the class, because it's a class library, would have access to it right away, right? So the ability to kind of do that quickly and easily can be powerful. And notably, I think what's interesting about this is that it works really well for the kind of content that I think, some of the other platforms are not really designed for. So, you could certainly distribute, documents like a Google Doc or Word doc through, Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. But what we do particularly well that those platforms and really no other platforms we know of are really designed well to handle is web content. So if you've got really interesting content that's, online, in addition to PDFs, it's something that you can use Scribble libraries to share and curate and collaborate on. I know we're going to be short on time, so I'm going to try to zip through the rest of this really fast. I won't go through this in much detail, but happy to answer any questions if there are any. The gist of this is basically to say that once folks started seeing Scribble being useful for text analysis, we started getting requests from special ed directors to have us build these kinds of capabilities, basically, assistive features, read aloud translations and definitions. And because we built it with a universal design for learning perspective, while it was originally requested by special ed, it turns out that it's pretty broadly sort of valuable beyond that to ELL and world languages. And these are capabilities that you've probably seen in other places. So they're not new concepts that we've created, but what's unique in our platform is that we get to combine it with annotation and some of the other things that we've built. And that allows for some really interesting new user experiences that people haven't seen before. And there's actually a blog post that maybe we could share. I don't know if Sandy, you could go to our blog real quick and pull the link for the blog post that talks about this and drop it into the chat for folks. If you can find it real quick. Otherwise, I'm happy to do it at the end as well. And then I'll just say, I'll make this very short. A lot of times people think of us naturally for the humanities because they're thinking of like an English paper or National History Day, which we support. But we are used in science as well. And that's because even if there's no paper at the end of your work, you might be doing a project, for example, that requires a lot of information curation, organization, maybe even annotation, maybe even creating a bibliography or a works cited page. And that could be for something like a science fair project. And so Scribble can be useful there as well. So, bottom line is we're useful, pretty broadly. And I don't want folks to think that, it's kind of a one-trick pony where you can only use it for that English paper you're going to do once a semester. When you do think about research and writing, it is the kind of work that really students have to master in this kind of modern information age. It is written into a lot of state and national standards. And it is very much the kind of work they have to master to be successful in college, where they're going to be writing lots of term papers, or to an extent also at work, where these days people are creating things like grant proposals and market research reports and white papers, and all these things require an individual to be able to sort of go out there and find evidence, to be able to process that and pull it out of a lot of content out in the world, and to be able to make a case with it. Right, that's the kind of work we're trying to help students be better at, and to help you and the teachers you work with be better at teaching students with or about. So again, I think I said this, our sweet spot really tends to be secondary, and I would say humanities and general science. These are the kinds of specific programs or initiatives you'll find in a school that we are helpful with and for. And then these are the kinds of initiatives that I think we're particularly helpful for, and these are usually things that are defined at the district level. I won't read through each one of these because I think you can read them and it makes sense, but I will just quickly comment on the last item, which is the college and career readiness. We're very fortunate that actually in December we received an industry award recognizing Scribble as a platform to help students basically prepare for the kind of work they're going to have to do in college. It was called the Soup's Choice Award, and it was basically a competition kind of like the People's Choice Award, but it was judged by superintendents across the country. And I think one of the reasons why we received that is that Scribble's built different than a lot of other K-12 edtech tools, in the sense that when your students graduate from high school, they can actually take their data and their account with them to college and continue to use the free version of the product, or if they like, they can upgrade, with a credit card to the paid version, which you may have paid for when they were in high school with you. So that portability of your data and your account, to know that this is not just a resource that they're going to benefit you from using while they're with you, but they can continue to rely on that and use that to make them more productive and more successful after they leave you, is one of the things that district leaders have said that they really like about Scrible. I'm going to try to play this. This is one of your own. So it's a peer testimonial from Emily Leonard, who is at Menominee Falls High School in Wisconsin. And this video is actually on our page on the WiLS site. So if you want to see it again, it's easily accessible. But I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and see if we can pull that up really quick. It's a pretty quick video, and she was very happy to provide it just to kind of help her peers basically know what it's been like for them to use it at their high school. So let me go ahead and hit play on this.
Hi, I'm Emily Leonard, and I'm the Library Media Specialist at Menominee Falls High School. We recently began using Scrible, and so far we've used it in English classes at all of the levels for their research projects. And so far we have been loving using Scrible. The teachers have remarked to me what a game changer it is for their research, because it saves both them time and it saves so much time for their students. Students are easily able to annotate web pages and PDF documents in their Scrible libraries, where they can also create outlines and bibliographies and works cited. So Scribble's been a total game changer for our research process, and we are super excited to be using it.
All right. So they started using us during the pandemic, and I know folks are still kind of reeling from some of the effects of the pandemic. And one of the reasons why I think they benefited from us during the pandemic is because we put all that work in one app online, and teachers and librarians are able to access both the underlying work that students are doing plus analytics around that work, as was kind of glossed over in the video. There wasn't a lot of detail there, but that's a pretty valuable part of it, so that you can provide real-time feedback despite the fact that you're not in person face-to-face with students. And that's pretty important, I think, if you are still facing things like pandemic disruption or other things that might be a problem going forward. So I know that we've talked a lot about the background, and I did want to take a couple minutes and talk a little bit about piloting, because that's kind of what the take-home message, I suppose, from this may be. Why pilot with Scrible, as Emily had done, I think? Well, there's a couple reasons, right? One is obviously for evaluation, to see if it's something that can benefit your teachers, your students, and yourself. Second is early mind share. So, the idea that you could do a pilot in a kind of more controlled way now, let's say, instead of waiting until the following school year, gives you some early inroads with teachers and with decision makers in the school or the district, and kind of just get some visibility for that before it becomes something that you might want to use at a larger scale, let's say across the school or across the district. And the third thing is feedback. So we've been complimented on being very responsive to feedback. And if you give us feedback after you do a pilot with us, certainly this semester, we take it very seriously, and we try really hard to basically make corresponding changes over the summer so that the platform is better for you and for everybody else, when everybody's back in the fall. I want to clarify a difference between trial and pilot, particularly for librarians. So when you sign up for Scrible, there's a free account. We have a freemium business model, so there's a free version and a paid version. And you'll see the ability to basically get an automatic upgrade during a trial period for, I think it's 30 days now. So you can see the EDU Pro features or the paid features. That lasts for a certain period of time. That's 30 days. And one of the benefits of doing a pilot is A, you can have a longer period of time. B, as a librarian, you actually can do things like see what it's like to be a co-teacher, essentially, on an assignment or within the system, which the trial as an individual user doesn't allow you to do. And then the third, of course, is the ability to kind of get the support that we would provide to help support the pilot, which we can talk about a little bit later. Some things to consider if you would like to pilot with us, which we would absolutely love, because we are loving folks in Wisconsin and getting more and more schools and librarians that we're working with through WiLS. First, there's no cost. So we're happy to do it for free this semester to work with you all to see if it might work for you for next year. Second, we highly recommend casting a wide net, but thoughtfully. So as you can see now, Scrible can be used in a lot of different ways across different disciplines and different types of projects. So we do say it's a good idea to try to cast a wide net. And actually the third bullet point really probably hits on that more, including a variety of different uses. The reason the second bullet point says do it thoughtfully is we like the idea of including quite a few teachers if you can, because we've seen in the past where if you just pick one teacher, for example, something might happen with them that's out of your control and our control. I have an example in mind of a pilot that we did once with two teachers, and one of the teachers had to leave the district for things that were outside of our control. And so kind of having too many of your eggs in one basket can be a little bit dangerous in terms of kind of resting the whole pilot on a small number of people. So we do say cast a wide net. But when I say thoughtfully, what I mean is that your teachers better than we do. And so you have to be thoughtful to make sure you're not including folks who are not, frankly, just excited about trying new things, right? If you get sort of the tech curmudgeons who are like, oh my God, this is one more thing, then that's not going to bode well for the pilot. So you want to cast a wide net, but you want to be mindful of the types of people you're including. Are they okay trying something new? Are they going to get frustrated if they don't know how to use it without a lot of hand-holding, et cetera? So that's the second and the third bullet point there. The fourth is, settle on an appropriate time length. Usually it's a couple months, but we can help you kind of make that decision if you like. Next is gather up the info you're going to need for the pilot setup. So typically the kinds of things that we need are, what's the domain that the staff and the students use? Sometimes it's different. Most of the time it's the same. So the domain would just be like, whatever comes after the @ symbol in your email address. What we do is we basically, in many cases, but not all cases, depends on the scale of the pilot. If you're doing something that includes a lot of folks, to just make it simple, we might just whitelist that email address. That way, anybody that signs up for Scrible with that email address automatically gets placed into the pilot. If you're really just doing a very small targeted pilot, we might not do that. We might just say, hey, give us the email address of the teacher and the few students that are going to use it. But we need that information. We'd obviously like to know the length of time. We'd like to know how many teachers and students are going to be involved. It's all pretty basic information, but it is stuff that we would ask for to help get it set up. The other item here is, have an onboarding and training plan, which we can help with. So we have a bunch of essentially self-help training tools and content resources that we can provide. And now that Sandy's on our team, she would actually be kind of helping to actively check in with you and make sure it's going well and see if you're hitting any snags or if your teachers are running into any problems, et cetera. But we can definitely help with that plan and help you through the pilot. And the last thing, and this is very important to us and would be to you as well if you continued on with us past the pilot, provide us some feedback to be able to serve you better. As I said earlier, we try to take that really seriously and make changes over the summer. So if you're interested, you can certainly email us at help@scrible.com. And I'm guessing there'll probably be a follow-up email that Jeff will send out with a link to this video later. And so we'll make sure we include that and maybe even a link to the help page on our website, so that if you do want to reach out to us to try to do a pilot this semester, where, I know it's already kind of late February, but if you do have a way to test us out before it gets even later into the semester, we'd love to do that. We'd be happy to do that. And then I guess we're kind of at the end here. So I just wanted to close out by saying that, if you were to continue with us after the pilot, as Emily and some other folks like some of the other districts in Wisconsin are doing, there's a couple of benefits, right? Or a couple of things that really help folks in Wisconsin. One is we have a partnership with WiLS, so you'd get a discount on, a school-wide subscription or a district-wide subscription. Second is that we've been proven to be an eligible sort of expense for school libraries under the Common School Fund, which is amazing that you all have that in Wisconsin. And last is that because we supported distance learning through the pandemic, we've been shown to be an eligible expense under the CARES Act ESSER funds. So these are all things that may be able to help you work with us if that's something that you want to do. And of course, we'd be excited to do that with you. So I'll stop there. I know we're basically out of time, but I'm happy to stop and see if there are any questions that we can answer really quick before maybe Jeff gives me the hook. So I don't know if people can unmute themselves or if that, the number of people we have, I'm okay with it, but if you want to put your questions into the chat, that's fine as well. So feel free to do whatever is easy. I'll keep an eye on the chat and I'll look for anybody that wants to unmute themselves as well if they want to do it that way.
Right.
I know this is super fast. I apologize. This was scheduled as a short webinar, so I went through everything really quickly. Luckily, you'll get the video later, so you can rewatch it in case anything was too fast. but we're also super accessible, and you can email us. I'm just going to put the help email address into the chat here. We're a small team, so it will not go into a black hole. In fact, you'll probably hear from Sandy when you email us if you like to do that.
This is Bonnie from Anigo, and I'd just like to mention that as soon as the pilot came out from WiLS, I contacted them the next day saying, that's what we've been talking about needing, and I need it now. And they have already set me up. They've been so accommodating and working with me. So I'm very, very psyched, and so are my English teachers and instructional coaches. So I've been exploring like crazy, but it's been crazy.
Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate it. We try. I always tell people, I can't promise you perfection, but I can promise you, we make a very strong effort to try to be responsive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been our pleasure, Bonnie. Thank you.
Any questions? Any feedback from anyone? Anne, Deb, Diane, Kay, Laura, Lisa. Don't want to focus on anybody in particular, but if you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear it. And if not, then I'll give it back to Jeff.
Okay. Well, I'll reiterate what Victor has said. Please do email, Scribble, contact us. We're happy to put you in touch. Oh, I see a question did come in chat.
Yeah, I see it from Diane, right?
Program provides.
So does your website summarize what your program provides? So the short answer is yes, but the website is actually pretty dated. We're actually planning to revamp it very soon. The best thing on the website that relays what Scribble does is actually the video that I showed you, and that is actually embedded as the first video on the homepage. So although the site content's kind of dated, the video is actually pretty fresh and new, and that's what I showed you here. So if you need a quick way for somebody to be able to, gauge what it is, that's that. Also, if you do reach out and you do want to share information with folks internally, like your teachers, to see if there's interest in a pilot, or just to get feedback on it, oftentimes if you email us, I will send a blurb that has a paragraph with a link to the video, and some other information about how you could use us, across disciplines and over remote and hybrid. We can send that to you that you can then just forward on to folks. You don't have to do too much remembering of what this thing is, and it's really simple. You just kind of you can forward it to folks. So if you want to reach out to us, we can send that to you, and that might be an easy way for you to share our information about us as well.
Okay,
I also want to mention that it looks so overwhelming because there is so much involved in this Scribble thing. But it is, once you start working on it, it's very user-friendly and it makes sense. I have been adding articles for this new project like crazy to help our English department out, and I'm amazed at how easy it's been to do that kind of thing. So don't let it overwhelm you immediately.
Yeah, and actually, I on longer calls, I usually get into this a little bit, but I will, since you brought it up, Bonnie, I think it's worth mentioning. There is a lot there, right? I mean, essentially what I said at the beginning of the call is that we are doing in one app what normally you have to try to cobble together using 3, 4, or 5 different apps, depending on what you're doing. So it is like a citation tool, plus a web clipper, plus a PDF annotator, right? So there's a lot there. And so there's no way to get around that, right? If you're trying to build sort of a super app, you're going to have a lot in there. But what we try to do to try to, make the learning curve less steep is we have a whole bunch of self-help resources like in-app tours, how-to guides. Sandy's actually been building a lot of new videos for us. We have a decent FAQ that's actually getting built and refined out a little bit more as well. And then, of course, we're happy to do training and we're very responsive on feedback. So there's a lot there, and it can feel that way, but it's a little bit the nature of the beast because of the kind of work that has to get done. And we do our best to provide really the best one-stop shop with as much help and support as we can provide to help you with that.
Okay. Well, we, as Victor mentioned, WiLS will be sharing this recording out to everyone who registered, but we're going to post it into our general K-12 list as well, so that all of our K-12 members have the opportunity to see this. The video will be is hosted, so if you think that what you saw today is something that you would want some of your colleagues to see. There'll be a link you can share to the recording as well, to kind of spread the word and see if we can get some folks piloting Scribble.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you all. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, friends from Scribble, and have a great afternoon.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.